Right, good morning, year two. It's been a while. How are you doing? I hope you've had a lovely half term and that you had a well-deserved rest and that you didn't look at any screens all week. Okay. I'd love to know what you got up to. I personally did a lockdown haircut, as you can probably tell. But let's jump in to our first lesson of our last term before Easter. And it is, of course, continuing on with Flat Stanley. Okay. Now, this term, we are doing a new skill, right? The last couple of terms, we've been really focusing on retrieval. But this term, we're going to be focusing on something called inference. Don't have to worry about that today, because on Mondays, remember, we do vocabulary. We always start our week off with vocabulary, okay? So just some questions, just to remind ourselves about Flat Stanley. Who wrote it? Who wrote Flat Stanley? Well done if you're using the screen to help you. The author, the writer, was Jeff Brown. Is Flat Stanley fiction or non-fiction? Do you remember what those words mean? So if you remember, fiction means it's made up and non-fiction means it's real, okay? So a fictional text is when you're reading a storybook, but then non-fiction is when you're reading facts about something in real life, kind of like a newspaper, right? So Flat Stanley is fiction, okay? There isn't a flat boy walking around as a kite or flying around as a kite. So well done if you remembered that. What other fiction texts can you think of? What other fictional texts have we done in class? The one that pops to mind is one to do with a bear. But what bear was it? There's one to do with a fox. What fox was it? All right, let's move on. So just to warm ourselves up, we're going to have a quick read and then answer a few questions. Okay, so this is The Tale of the Knight and the Gnome. One day there was a brave knight. He was on his way to fight a dragon. Could have been a nice dragon, you know. All of the people in the town were afraid of the dragon. He would gnarl, gnaw, and gnash his teeth all night long. He kept the people in the town awake. The knight got lost on his way to the fight. He found an odd house and did a loud knock on the window. A little gnome was inside. The knight knelt down on one knee to speak to the gnome. The gnome knew that the dragon was in a cave. He said that he could help the knight with his campaign. They found the dragon and they tied a knot in the dragon's tail so it was stuck to a rock. Now the dragon could never gnarl, gnash, and gnaw at the people in the town ever again. Okay. Whew, that's I guess we can call that a story. Someone just really wanted to get the GN and KN sounds in there as much as possible, didn't they? Whew. Right, so inference, which we're doing this term, is all about reading between the lines and being able to explain why things are happening in the story, okay? So although we haven't properly taught you the skill yet, you'll be doing that as we go through this week, as you do Flat Stanley. We're just going to try a few inference questions now, just to start your mind thinking about how we answer these kind of questions. So why were the people kept awake at night? Because it's inference, at no point does it say people were kept awake at night by. Okay, so you need to read between the lines. It does say awake, so he kept the people in the town awake. Who's he? Is it the knight? Is it the dragon? No, it's the dragon, because he gnawed, gnawed, and gnashed his teeth all night long. So why were the people kept awake at night? Because the dragon gnarled, gnawed, and gnashed his teeth during the night, okay? It doesn't say that explicitly in the text. It doesn't tell us that word for word, but we can work out what it means. Inference is all about being a detective. We're all going to become Sherlock Holmes this term. Okay? It's all about being able to understand what the wider context of something is. Next question. Why do you think the knight went on one knee to speak to the gnome? Okay, so again, we know that he went on one knee. We know that, but why? So we can look here. The knight knelt down on one knee to speak to the gnome. How are we going to find out why? We kind of have to think a bit. So he found an odd house and did a loud knock on the window. A little gnome was inside. Oh, okay, so the gnome is little. So if the gnome's really little, the knight must have got down on one knee to speak to them because they were so little, they went down to their level. Okay, so that's why the knight went down on one knee. Well done if you said that. And then how did they defeat the dragon? So again, at no point does it say the knight defeated the dragon by, okay. We know the dragon was defeated, but how? Okay, so here it tells us they tied a knot in the dragon's tail so that it was stuck to a rock, which meant the dragon could never gnarl, gnash, and gnaw. Okay, so they tied his tail to a rock. Don't really know why doing that would stop the dragon from gnarling, gnashing, and gnawing, seeing as that's your teeth, not your tail. But, you know, who am I to question this story? All right. So that's a brief look at inference. Like I said, we're going to focus on vocabulary today. Those are the sort of questions we'll be looking at during this term. Those sort of why questions, get you to think beyond what the text actually says. So here is our section for today. Now, it's been a while. So if you remember, Stanley saved the museum. He caught the thieves and it made him a bit famous. But that fame went away after a while. And then people started being mean to him, started bullying him, okay? But he's still pretty mad at Arthur, even though he feels quite lonely. He's still mad at his brother Arthur because he left him in a tree as a kite, all right? So just to remind you of that context. So later that night, Arthur Lambchop was woken by the sound of crying. In the darkness, he crept across the room and knelt by Stanley's bed. "Are you okay?" he said. "Go away," Stanley said. "Don't be mad at me," Arthur said. "You're still mad because I let you get tangled the day you were my kite, I guess." Bit clunky. "Skip it, will you?" Stanley said. "I'm not mad. Go away." "Please, let's be friends." Arthur couldn't help crying a little too. "Oh, Stanley," he said, "please tell me what's wrong." Stanley waited for a long time before he spoke. "The thing is," he said, "I'm just not happy anymore. I'm tired of being flat. I want to be a proper shape again, like other people. But I'll have to go on being flat forever. It makes me sick." "Oh, Stanley," Arthur said. He dried his tears on a corner of Stanley's sheet and could think of nothing more to say. "Don't talk about what I just said," Stanley told him. "I don't want the folks to worry. That would only make it worse." Okay, by the folks, he means his parents. "You're brave," Arthur said. "You really are." He took hold of Stanley's hand. The two brothers sat together in the darkness, being friends. They were both still sad, but each one felt a little better than he had before. And then, suddenly, though he was not even trying to think, Arthur had an idea. He jumped up and turned on the light and ran to the big storage box where toys and things were kept. He began to rummage in the box. Right, so that's our section today. Arthur comforting Stanley and them kind of getting over their differences and becoming friends again. Right, quick questions. What woke Arthur up? Why was Stanley crying? Why didn't Stanley want Arthur to tell anybody he was upset? How did Arthur comfort Stanley? And what do you think Arthur's idea might be? Remember, it's Arthur that had the idea, not Stanley. What do you think Arthur's idea might be? So what woke Arthur up? Stanley's crying. So well done if you put the sound of crying. Why was Stanley crying? Because he felt sick about being flat. He didn't want to be flat anymore. Why didn't Stanley want Arthur to tell anybody he was upset? Because he didn't want his parents to worry. How did Arthur comfort Stanley? They held hands. And then what do you think Stanley's idea might be? I can't tell you the answer for that because it's what you think. So what do you think Arthur's idea is? How is he going to help? Guess we'll find out later on. Okay, so remember for vocabulary, which is what we're doing today, it's looking at the word, underlining it, finding it in the text, reading around it, and then you do your answers, okay? So this is in Teams for you. You've got all the words down the left, and then have a go. And then if you want to stretch yourself, if you've still got time, use a dictionary or a thesaurus to define / find other words for these keywords, okay? So can you come up with synonyms for these keywords? Right? That's your stretch if you want to. Good luck. You know where the assignments are by now on Teams. I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.